Well, good evening and welcome for watching Green TV Pat Foundation. We are live tonight and we have a very special guest. His name is Mick Dawson. Well, I'll not steal his thunder. He's got loads and loads to tell you. But yes, it's a very, very exciting show, so stay tuned. There's lots to find out and lots to learn. So first of all, welcome to the show, Mick. Thank you so much for coming on Green TV.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. Good to speak to you.
You're very welcome. So whereabouts in the country are you at the moment, Mick?
I'm down on the south coast, just outside of Brighton.
Ah, what's it like down in Brighton? It's been a mixture of sun and showers here I'm in East Yorkshire, so it's been a mixture of sunny and showers. What about you?
We had thunderstorms and torrential rain, which is just grey and miserable now. So a little bit of everything, but no sunshine.
Maybe we'll probably get that up here later. It tends to sweep across the country. So Mick, first of all, tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, my name's Mick Dawson. I'm a former Royal Marine for my sins many years ago.
For my sins. I like that.
Looking for a challenge in Civvy Street after I left. I eventually stumbled into ocean rowing. I got quite attached to it or addicted to it, depending on how you look at it. And initially rowed across the Atlantic with my brother, cracked the Atlantic again on one occasion, and had now 4 attempts or 4 rows across the Pacific. One successful attempt from Japan.
So what made you decide to? Did you just wake up one day and go, I'm gonna get in my boat and I'm gonna go roam? So what was the driving force behind that, Mick?
Oh, I was just totally disenchanted with Civvy Street. I read a book called Into Thin Air about the worst year for deaths on Everest, or at that time, I think it was 96, and just inspired me to go out and do something. I was going to climb Everest, and then I found out about a rowing race across the Atlantic. Thought that'd be easier. I can do that now, because I was a professional sailor by that stage. So rang my brother, bought a kit for a boat, put it together, and went to Tenerife and rowed to Barbados.
Wow, that's awesome. Was there any particular, was it just a personal achievement, or was you doing it in aid of a cause, or was there any sort of ethos behind doing that?
Yeah, we were, everything I've ever done has been a charitable fundraising aspect behind it. If I'm honest, it takes all the effort to get to the start line with these projects just to make them happen. So the charity side of it, although important, it's a side issue almost getting to the start line of these events. But that's built, the more I've done it, the more experienced I've become. The more charitable causes is a key issue with doing it. And now, obviously, I'm linked with the Royal Marines charity, and pretty much everything I do is to raise funds and awareness for them.
Yeah, so you run the Cockle Shell Endeavours, don't you, down over in Brighton? So tell me what that involves and how it benefits veterans, Marines, that kind of culture.
That kind of grew from the rowing. When I eventually got to San Francisco from Japan, I thought I was finished, and then I wasn't. I did a trip down to the Falklands with an old friend of mine. I was asked to go down with him for his 50th, actually. Turned out he was having a few issues with basically PTSD. Long story short, he was getting no help. I think what he got was go away for 3 months, and then no drugs, no alcohol, and then we'll diagnose you officially. And as he said to me when he told me that if I could do that, I wouldn't need their help, would I? So I put something together for 3 months to cover him through that, which was what we thought would be kayaking around the Falklands. That's quite difficult, especially if you can't kayak, which we couldn't. And that became a 2-year project. We ended up racing in the Devizes to Westminster, racing in the Yukon Great River Quest, 440-mile, almost non-stop race up the Yukon, and then eventually returned to the Falklands to circumnavigate East Falkland in 2017. And that was basically the start of the Cockle Shell Endeavour, and like helping a mate who had PTSD issues.
Yeah, and did you find that was healing? I mean, obviously, I do work with the Pat Foundation Green Task Force. They go out, into nature and have the benefits there. So you obviously, it was a sea-based thing. Was predominantly, was it healing? Was it doing something together? Was it the camaraderie of the teamwork? What helped it in that sort of sense?
Well, to be honest, it's a massive learning curve for all of us because we thought it had helped, but we had no idea really how. We just thought it away from and to get him,
Best
get
laid
him.
plans, eh?
Yeah, more luck than judgment. But what came out of it was the key issues were the fact that he got some structure back in his life. Fitness came with it. Fitness brings self-respect, confidence, and most importantly, we were mostly kayaking in a single canoe, double canoes. So we'd spend all the time not just doing the things but training, sat chatting to each other, and it was communication. And that, I think it helps personally. I think it's vital that you're at sea. It's just the right environment for it. But it was really that secret that two people working together on the same project with a goal in mind, with an opportunity to talk, was just the brilliant way to get him back on track. If only on the road to recovery. I'm not saying it's not the solution, but it's certainly the start of the solution.
No, it is. I mean, don't underplay that. It's life changing. You giving that helping hand. It's that sense of purpose. I think you'll probably agree. When you came out of the forces yourself, it's the case of you come out, you're used to a certain way of doing things, living, surviving, thriving, and I guess you feel a little bit lost when you come out of the forces. So doing something like that, a project. With guys that have been, in the regiment, I guess will have been massively beneficial.
Yeah, well, we put it down to simple things. We all spoke the same language. That's how we explained it. We could say a single word and you'd know what the other person meant because you got shared history. I mean, we knew each other as well, which helped. But I think services in general, across the services, you put servicemen together, they split. Excuse me, you can put service personnel together, they speak the same language.
Yeah, the camaraderie and the jokes and the banter, it's all sort of, we was talking off air, wasn't we, before, and what was it, something about some crayons or something, I think the two, our IT managers, ex-Navy, you what, sorry?
I just heard something about sweating like a matlow in a spelling.
Yeah. So there was this, obviously, with the Navy guys and you Marine guys, it was quite funny. You do have, whatever regiment, you have your own sort of little language, and I'm steadily and readily learning that as I go along. It is, and it's that sense of community, and I think that is what needs to be created more in Civistry, as you'd probably agree with that. So with doing all what you did, with the going across the seas and, the great challenges that you did. I mean, I've followed your work and I've watched what you've done on LinkedIn, and it's, brilliant. So that led on to you writing a book. So how did that come about? And have you got your book to hand so we can plug it?
That makes me seem so cheap and shallow. I've even got.
There we go. Oh, I just so happen to have one here.
Yeah. I'm both books.
Oh, 2 books as well. So, right, okay. Tell me about the first one, Mick.
Well, the first
plug there.
Yeah, I look like such a child. The first book was basically rowing the Pacific, and that tells the story ultimately of crossing the North Pacific, where me and Chris Martin are the only people. We were the first people and still the only people to row from Japan to the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And that's kind of when I thought I was retired. And the new book, which is there, that tells the Cockleshell Endeavour story that kind of spiraled out of that. Initially with Steve Grenham, going back to the Falklands, and more recently, a couple of years ago, a blind veteran, an old mate of mine, another Steve Sparks. We rode the Pacific again, from California to Hawaii.
And he was blind.
He's blind, yeah.
So just guided by you guys.
Yeah, I just told him we were going on Serpentine for half an hour.
Made sure there was a cup of tea and some sandwiches, and he was game.
Exactly. That's pretty much what it was. We met for the first time in 28 years in my local pub near UK Blind Veterans, and within 2 hours we'd planned to join the race across the Pacific. So 6 months later we'd done it. But,
wow, what an amazing achievement. And it's, that sense of achievement, that sense of pride, and it's, so you formed this charity, the Cockleshell Endeavours. I'd like to tell our viewers a little bit more about that. You can look on your social media, and we can put the links on this for people out there who are interested in and want to know more. So tell me a bit more about the charity and how it can sort of help, and is it just for ex-Marines, or is it for other ex-forces guys as well. You know, tell me predominantly how that can people can get in contact with you.
Yeah, well, basically, the Cockleshell Endeavours evolved after the rowing with the people I've mentioned, but we've done all other projects. We learned quite early on that it's basically getting people on, water-based projects focused on a goal, talking to each other is helpful. So we've had guys in the Devices to Westminster teams taking part in that. Just recently, even despite COVID, 2 serving Royal Marines and 2 former Afghan vets, recovering vets, rowed across the Atlantic. Their race was actually cancelled across the Pacific in the space of about 4 weeks. They turned it around and set up an independent row from Tenerife or near Tenerife to Barbados. And all these projects have been done under the Cockleshell Endeavour banner, basically. There's more planned for next year. I've got a UK-based project planned for next year, but they're all basically the same premise that we raise money and awareness for the Royal Marines charity. It isn't purely just Royal Marines; it's any service personnel contacted us to get involved with them. But it's water-based projects to get people back on track if they're finding things a bit tough. It doesn't, even if it's just a case of getting back together with a group of people where you speak the same language. You don't have to be, desperate. It might just be something that's just useful for you to get involved in. It's been as good for me as it has for, for Steve Grenham dealing with PTSD. It's a universally positive experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, and it's exciting to me, for example, to get involved in. Some people do these for personal achievements anyway, but if you are suffering with any form of mental health issues, it's a great way to, the seas healing, it's cleansing. So I'm going to ask, how long does it take you to get to Tenerife by boat, by canoe doing that? How long did it take you?
We went from Tenerife to Barbados the first time in 2001. It took us 70 days, I think, which is slower than we anticipated. I think that, it's moved on since my time now. Some of the boats are designed, and some people crack it in about 30 days.
I'm just thinking with the COVID restrictions and flying, I'm thinking, can I get myself in a canoe and get myself on holiday? That might take me a little bit longer than 30.
In fairness, it's probably not much slower than an airport queue at the minute getting through customs.
Absolutely. And there's no customs and no checking. But now, joking aside, gosh, so that's quite a long time for obviously you guys to be on that, in that environment. So there's the talking, obviously you'll have the resources on board, and when you get back from the expedition, what's the feedback from the guys? Obviously there's must be an overwhelming sense of achievement, but what's the general feedback in terms of their well-being? Well,
the guys that have just come back, Will and Junior, are the 2 recovering veterans on board. Nutty and Brucey, the 2 serving bootnecks who are on there as well. They all got a huge amount from it. Talking to Will and Junior, it was quite reassuring for me, because they got so much out of it. Because you move into an environment, especially on an ocean row like that, where your time frame changes. You stop worrying about being somewhere at 9-10 o'clock and start thinking about when's the next full moon, when's the next meal, when's the next sundown, when's the next sun up, that sort of thing. And your body clock settles down. Actually, I think you get on a more natural rhythm. And the fact that you're in a position where it's easy to communicate for a long period of time means you talk about more. So it's not without its challenges, because to row across the Atlantic's incredibly difficult. But for those kind of guys, that's what they want. That's what they need. And it brings the best out of them. They want, as they say, to be reminded of the blokes they were when they were in the Corps.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you... Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you been running the Cockleshell Endeavours, Mick? When did it
that kind of kicked off in 2015. I can't believe how long ago that is now. It's been 6 years since we went to the Falklands and came up with that brilliant idea about kayaking around them. And the projects have all evolved from that, as much by luck as judgment. But there's no question, it has a positive effect for the people taking part, and I think just being at sea is a positive environment. If you add the other things to it as well, it's just a win-win situation for the guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you've got 2 books out now. So which one? I know we did that sort of plug, but what was the first one again? So Never Leave a Man Behind.
No, the first one was Rowing the Pacific.
Oh, Rowing the Pacific, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can buy these from any bookstores or download them, or
you can get them from all good bookstores, or on Amazon's probably the best. You can even contact me and I'll send you a signed copy if you want. But I think I'm more expensive than Amazon.
Oh, well, I shall be
They won't sign
it. So there's a bit of a story as well, isn't there, behind the publishing of the books? Because I do believe that you struggle to get it actually published by a UK publisher. It was actually somebody. There's a little bit of a story behind that. So tell our viewers watching this that story. It's quite interesting.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a number of people out there writing books and trying to get them published. I initially tried to row the North Pacific solo and sank about 1,000 miles off the coast. And from that point on, I thought, well, this is a story worth telling. And that was in 2004. And it was about 2016 before I got a publisher on board. And that was by pure chance. I was working in America and an American agent found out about the story. I'd had unlimited rejections from all UK publishers. But a bright sign of that is that when my book was published in America, it was sold as foreign rights to the UK, believe it or not. And the second book was published by the UK publisher on the back of that.
So they obviously wanted a little piece of the pie then afterwards. So come on, England, support our guys. That's not good that we've had to go all the way to America, is it? So
no, well, we're a country that has lots of people that does things like this. I know dozens of people who have gone out and done ambitious projects, and I think we're lucky that we have that. But probably not lucky to get a book published trying to tell those stories.
Well done for persevering, because obviously people reading that, it's life-changing. I think a book is leaving a legacy. It's something that you can leave for generations to come. So it's definitely a worthwhile thing. So well done you. So people wanted to get hold of you, Mick. How do they go about doing that?
The best way is basically through the website, which is www.189days.com, or just Mick, M-I-C-K, at 189days.com.
We can put all the links on.
Yeah, or they can go to Cockleshell Endeavour, www.cockleshellendeavour.com.
Perfect. So what does the future hold then, Mick? So you've done quite a lot of already, and you've done your accolades, and are you wanting to, have a bit of a quiet life, or have you still got some ambitious projects? Tell me what's in line for the future. I know that obviously GA, myself, we're going to do some projects, and we're looking at next year now, aren't we, to work with the Marines and do some sort of career-wise and sort of put them on their path a little bit in my work that I'm doing at the moment. But tell us what's for the future, Mick.
Well, I've been thinking long and hard over COVID because it threw up a number of problems for everybody, not least Cockleshell Endeavour. But ocean rowing's probably quite a selfish sport. But the one thing I've got from Cockleshell Endeavour is I've got the opportunity to pay something back, and I've seen the benefits of it. So I'm going to go forward with the Cockleshell Endeavour. There are projects happening next year that are going to fly the banner for it. The guys who just rode the Atlantic, they're setting up a race across the Atlantic. So if anybody wants to get on board a 4-man boat, there will definitely be seats available there.
Oh, wow, okay.
There's a kayaking expedition from Scotland that's going to fly the banner. And as it's the 40th anniversary of the Falklands War next year, and I figured that's the last significant anniversary before we're all being wheeled out in bath chairs. I'm going to create an event to raise funds for the Royal Marines charity, but also to collect or record and archive footage of interviews with people who took part, not just Marines and paras and sailors, but everybody affected by it who wants to take part. So if there's people out there who've got family or had any connection with the Falklands War and want to talk about it, I want to include that in that project next year, which will run from April the 2nd when the war started when the Argentines invaded, to June the 14th, the surrender. So.
Right. Wow. Well, let us know here on Green TV how we can help you out with that and publicise it. No doubt we'll get involved with that with you. So that's brilliant. Oh, that's something to look forward to. So no rest for the wicked. So when you're not obviously getting in your boat and travelling around, what does Mick Dawson like to do in his spare time? Are you still as adventurous when you're not doing all these different adventures and excursions, or what do you like to do in your spare time, Mick?
I seem to have totally exhausted Netflix, so that's finished.
Everybody. What are you watching at the moment?
Sorry?
What are you watching
Nothing really. I think I've literally come to the end of anything worth watching on Netflix. But,
I'm watching Sons of Anarchy. I'm into the last Sons of Anarchy, so the biker gang. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's fascinating. It's got me hooked. It gives me a little bit of some senses, a little bit of a negative vibe after, because there's so much killing and upset, I think. But it's fascinating. It's a very, very good series. So I'll be looking for something after that. But there's so many films and so many things to choose on there, isn't there? I think a lot of people have been I think they've actually put the price up on Netflix. I think they've actually put the subscription fee up. So
I think the price on everything is going to be going up.
Do you not have any pets or anything that you
No, I don't. I would love to have a dog, actually. I was talking about this, but the nature of what I do means I'm away for large chunks of time, and dogs get quite upset about that, don't they? So,
yeah. Could you not take them with you? Is that not
feasible? I've thought about that as well in the past, but so far not. Maybe in the future.
Yeah, maybe.
I've run out of food in the past, so they'd be handy.
I know, and it is. I think people sometimes get dogs a bit willy-nilly, don't they, and actually don't realise they are a massive responsibility. I'm teaching that to my daughter at the moment, who's coming up for 14 and is desperate for a dog, but she'll be coming to her formative years in the not too distant future, so who'll end up looking after it? So I'll have to decide. It has to be a joint decision there, but yes, I mean, it's COVID's been quite restricted, and we've had this conversation a lot. I mean, have you ventured out much? Have you been into the pubs? And obviously your mum has her own pub, but have you ventured out much, or have you just kind of kept yourself to yourself? We've talked in past shows about people being quite isolated in COVID. So obviously with what you're doing with the activities outside of that is good for people, but also now as we integrate back into society, it's forming quite hard for some people to actually go back to normal.
Yeah, I think it's important. One of the things that I'm making a conscious effort to do is not to pass on those opportunities to speak, and more importantly, see people. All those, I'll see you soon, and then it's 2-3 years pass. And I've made a conscious decision. No, we will arrange a date and we'll meet up, because those dates will just drift by. So if nothing else, one good thing that's come out of COVID, I think, is that it's shown the importance of other people to each other, and not taking one another for granted on such a with a normal level. Normal life kicks in and you're busy with other things, aren't you?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's those times when you say, I'm too busy for a coffee, or I'm too busy for a chat. I think being in isolation in COVID has made, I suppose, that human, it's been kind of a good thing in some sense, because it's kind of made people realise the power of talking and human connection, and the power of just reaching out. I know the Green Task Force have been doing the campaign for the Check 5. I think it's an Australian initiative, so it's literally it's to the veteran community, but this can be obviously to widespread, and it's just reaching out to 5 people. So if you think about the power of that, if everybody in the cosmos reached out to 5 individuals, there's not going to be a lot of people that doesn't get that shoulders to cry on if they need it, or just actually I'm fine, thanks for asking. That's
just reassurance.
That the whole caring and sharing thing, it's been, I think we've all noticed that in COVID, and I think that's been a really good, powerful message and a positive out of COVID. Obviously there's been a lot of not so good things, obviously, and all people dying and all the deaths and all the sadness and sorrow, which I don't want to bring the show down and talk about that, but on the positive side, it's born, you know, this kind of thing that we're doing now with the podcasting and the Zooming, and people have had no choice but to go online and communicate. So it's been a good positive thing in that sense.
The secret is not to forget it when things get back to normal. I've learned that when you get off an ocean rowing boat during the row, you've solved all of your problems, and immediately you get off, you forget that and get back into the same old rut. So the secret is, when we get back to some level of normality, don't just get back to taking things for granted, or more importantly, don't take people for granted.
Absolutely. I think us humans have this complacency where we do take people for granted. I had this conversation with one of my friends that says we shower funerals with flowers, and you know, we make this big thing. You should celebrate people when they're alive. So I mean, that's probably a whole new different subject matter, but you know, your point that you're trying to make is absolutely spot on. It's kind of appreciate each day. You know, you guys who have served in the forces know the power and appreciating life, because you've seen a very, very different side. So it's massively important. So Mick, thank you so much for coming on to the show. It's been a pleasure, and it's been great to find out about what you're doing. Massive, love the fact you've written the books, and if anybody wants them, I suggest you contact Mick and get a signed copy. I mean, how cool would that be? Oh, Pip's just actually, a good friend, Pip's, she's just put, how can we support the cockle shell endeavours? So how could we support you, Mick? That's a good question. Thanks, Pip.
Well, I'm about to relaunch the website. So once you get to the website, there'll be ways to support the next project. But I'm literally just putting the things in place for the project next year. It's quite a massive project logistically. And I want everything to be in place before I ask for support. But if people want to sponsor it, contact me through Cockle Shell Endeavour or Mick at 189 Days. If you want to be involved in it and sponsor the project, there's always avenues for that. Or just follow it and you know, join in and support the guys when they're doing things, because the support helps as well.
Absolutely. And businesses watching this, if you're a business owner watching this, you know, it's a really worthwhile cause to support. And you know, it's kind of that feel good factor, isn't it? I think if you do a good turn and you help somebody out, it does come back on you. So thank you so much for watching tonight. A massive thank you from me, obviously, Gail Acaster, and all at Green TV. We love having interesting guests like yourself and sharing your story. People watching this tonight will have helped so many people, and you know, future people that want to get involved, please reach out. We'll put all the social media links and watch this space. Just before I go, I'd like to mention the Pat Foundation are launching a series of academies online. So it's in forestry. So if you're interested in learning how to plant trees and want to get accredited into that, go check out patfoundation.org. There's all details on there on how you can get accredited in the forestry domain. So thanks ever so much, Mick, for coming on the show. We shall publicise this to the max and get the message out there. And, you know, if you do want to get in touch, please do reach out. That's the key. It's good to talk. So bye from Gail Acaster. Thanks ever so much for watching.
Thanks for the invite, Gail. Cheers.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.